time to finish the Throne of Glass series. We've got the biggest books for last. Am I a little nervous? Yes. Am I also very excited? Yes. We're gonna start off with the tandem read of Tower of Dawn and Empire of Storms. I've never done a tandem read before, so this is gonna be interesting. And then of course we're gonna finish it off with Kingdom of Ash, which I have seen so many people bawl over this book. So I have very much high hopes for this book, but I have no idea what to expect with the tandem read. I have this little print off that I actually got from Barnes & Noble a while ago telling me the reading orders, then also how to do the tandem read, which is so handy. And also I feel like I'm really gonna like the idea of checking all of these boxes off as I go. So looks like we start with Empire of Storms. It's been a couple days. I'm obviously reading both of these books at the same time. So I've been debating on how I want to update you guys, but I think I'm just gonna talk about each book separately and then I'll talk about them together. Let's start with Empire of Storms because this is the first book that you dive into while doing the tandem read. And honestly, this book started a little weird for me. Like the beginning just felt kind of odd. And I'm not sure if that's because I took a long break between reading Air of Fire and reading these books, and maybe I shouldn't have done that, but I will say the beginning felt a little bit odd. I felt like it took a couple chapters for me to get into it, but I feel like at this point in the series it should not take me a couple chapters to get into the book because I already have everything set up for me and I already know all the characters and everything like that. So that was kind of odd. And also, as much as I'm rooting for the couple in this book, because I'm tired of Miss Aylin hopping between the boys, I want her to stay with this man, I also don't want it to become like ACOTAR, because that is something I did not like in ACOTAR. It had way too much of that going on, if you know what I mean. So I really hope that things kind of stay how they are. Like there's still some romance, but the fantasy is at the forefront. You know, that's what I want. I picked up a fantasy, I didn't pick up a romance. So, but also I'm loving the crossover between these two books, because when I first did my first switch in the tandem read, like when I went from this book to this book, I loved that Dorian was talking about Kale in this book while like it was happening. Like Dorian talks about Kale getting his legs fixed in this book, and then we switch over to this book and it's happening in this book, like in real time. Loved that. I don't know why, but I just like loved that. It felt extra special for that to happen with it being in the tandem read. Like if I had finished this book and then gone on to this book and that happened, I would have been like, okay, whatever, like who cares? I don't know if that makes sense. It just felt a lot more special, but I feel like I've talked a lot about Empire of Storms and not a lot about Tower of Dawn. That's also partially because I'm on page 95 in Empire of Storms and I'm only on page 22 in Tower of Dawn. So I obviously have a lot more to talk about in Empire of Storms than I do in Tower of Dawn. I'm kind of enjoying Tower of Dawn right now, but also it's shorter. So I feel like I'm reading only a chapter at a time. But actually, yeah, that is literally true. I'm not even on chapter 2 yet. But for some reason, I'm more interested in the Kale plot right now than I am of what's going to happen in Empire of Storms, which is weird because I feel like Empire of Storms has a lot more potential than Tower of Dawn does. But obviously, I'm very early on into both books, so I have no idea. I also just took out my little checklist, which has been so fun to do these little check marks. I don't know why, it's just so satisfying to have these little check marks. And just look how many chapters there are. It's gonna be so satisfying to have all of this checked. It's now the next morning, so let's chat about these books. I'm on page 215 in Tower of Dawn and page 198 of Empire of Storms. I am still feeling the same way about Empire of Storms, meaning I like Tower of Dawn a lot more than I like Empire of Storms, which I feel like I might be in the minority in that one because I feel like I am the only person that loves Kale, and maybe that feeling will change as the series continues on because I'm suspicious that I'm the only one that seems to love him so much. But also I'm wondering if that is why I like Tower of Dawn so much more, or if I'm just more invested in this storyline, because so far this storyline is all about helping Kale, and I'm also at the part where the healer has been found dead in the library, so that is so interesting to me as well because, you know, this city used to be such a safe spot and now it looks like it's no longer safe. It looks like it's no longer away from the war, like the war has reached the city already. And honestly, every time I stop reading these books and I like look back at what I'm reading, this sticks out to me way more than this. Like in my head, I'm like, what is even going on in this book? I'm this far into it, and I feel like all that's really happened is the attack on Dorian's city, which I forgot how to pronounce, so I'm not gonna say it, but and him fleeing, and right now they're about to meet with the pirate. Like, that's really all that's happened. Like, obviously that's not it, but like that's all that sticks out to me in this book. I don't know why, but I feel like I'm in the minority here that I like this one more than this one, even though I actually have no idea what people's thoughts are about these two books. So comment below what reading order you did, if you did the tandem read, if you read this one first or this one first, and which one you liked better, because I'm super curious. Obviously I have so much of both of these books left, so my feelings could definitely change, but that was like my main feeling right now. I wrote some things down on the notes in my phone, which I do a lot while I'm filming reading vlogs, just in case I forget to mention something, and also because a lot of times if I'm sitting down and reading, I'm either like in the living room or I'm in our bonus room and I don't want to get up to get my camera and talk, and I also just want to keep reading, you know what I mean? So two of the things that I wrote down, it's kind of funny because one just says kale girly, so I wanted to make sure I talked about how much I like kale, and I feel like I'm the only one. Like, everyone is a Dorian lover, and I still like Dorian, but I think I'm a kale girly, and I don't know how to pronounce her name. Westfall. I think I just spoiled something on accident while I looked up how to say her name, but also I had a feeling before. Damn. Anyways, I already forgot how to pronounce her name. She's back from Assassin's Blade, which I love because when I was reading Assassin's Blade, if you saw that video, you know I was talking about her in that video, saying how much I liked her, and that I was kind of sad to see that she wasn't in the rest of Assassin's Blade because she was only in one of the novellas in that book. But now she's back, and I think I just spoiled something for myself, but it's fine. I was already at the point where like I had that feeling already because the girl that he's currently with in the book has been like kind of very MIA and is low-key falling for a prince. So we're gonna see where that goes. But Miss Healer girl has been spending a lot of time with Kale. So I figured that something like that was going to happen and I wanted it to happen. So now I don't know how to feel. Okay, I've reached the point where things are starting to interconnect more, which definitely has an effect on the reading experience in the sense of like the tandem read. Because I think I talked about earlier that I was kind of curious on how much crossover there would be and basically the effect of the tandem read. But I say that because in this book, Kale tells, I already forgot how to pronounce her name. Is it Irene? Is that how you say it? I don't know. He tells her that Selena is going to Stone Mountain, thinking there's no way that Selena would go there. Like, literally in his inner monologue, he says that he chose Stone Mountain because it was the last place that he thought that she would go. But meanwhile, at the same time in this book, that's exactly where she's headed, which is so crazy. So now every time I pick up this book, I'm like, when is this gonna cross over, and when are like the, how do you say this? The Kate? I don't know how to say that. And when are the people gonna like go after Selena? Because I'm assuming that's why Irene was spying so that the princess can go after Selena or something like that. I don't really know. That's just my only going theory right now. I also feel like there's more happening in this book now. Like, now that that big piece of information has connected these two books more, I'm more interested in this book. Not like more interested versus this one, because I still am low in this one, but I'm more interested in this in general, if that makes any sense at all. I don't know. I'm tired, so nothing is making sense to me. Okay, I feel like I'm finally kind of at the halfway part in both of these books, because I'm a little over halfway in this one and a little under halfway in this one, which I feel like these books are taking me forever to get through. Because honestly, normally I read a book in like 2 or 3 days. These books I've been reading for maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks. Like, it's been a while. So they're reading a lot slower for me than I originally thought that they would, which is also scary because this is the next book. It's like almost 1,000 pages, I think. I don't know. I don't want to look because I don't want to accidentally spoil anything. But yeah, it's really long. So that's a little concerning for me. That's not even what I came on here to say. I came on here to say that I was listening to a podcast this morning and my theory about most people not liking Tower of Dawn was correct. At least neither of them liked Tower of Dawn as much as Empire of Storms. Like, a lot of people just kind of drag their feet through Tower of Dawn, which is so crazy because I'm like, how? Like, yeah, it is a lot of like healing Kale and some romance, but I really like that. I'm kind of enjoying the low stakesness of it, and also like they're kind of learning more about what they have to deal with. So I feel like this book is going to set up Kingdom of Ash really nicely, but I will say Empire of Storms seems to have so much more action going in it. I'm at page 285 in Empire of Storms, and Selena has reached the, I always want to call it Stone Mountain, but that's not what it is. But she's there. Yeah, that's all I really have to say about that. I'm about to reach the point in the tandem read where I read a lot of Empire of Storms, which I'm really hoping that that will help me connect more to this book. But in Tower of Dawn right now, Kale and Irene are having their little date. I don't think that they really are considering it a date, but I'm considering it a date because they go into the city and they have dinner. So I'm at that part right now, but I'm about to switch back to Empire of Storms. I'm gonna eat lunch first and then I'm gonna keep reading, and I really want to get through a good amount of these books today. If there is an accidental pregnancy trope in any of the books that I have left in the series, odds of me ever reading Crescent City just plummet. My hypothesis was correct. After reading a giant chunk of Empire of Storms, I'm definitely a lot more into it than I was before. I just wish I had this feeling earlier in the book because now I'm really into it, but it's just so far into the book at this point that I'm like, well, I feel like this is obviously out of contender for a 5-star, even if the last half is really amazing. I feel like, at least. Just because, like I said, I wasn't super connected in the first half, which I'm still a little bit flabbergasted over because I have been really enjoying Tower of Dawn, and I'm just now realizing I don't have that much left of either of these books. But there's something about switching between the books that makes me feel like it's taking me so long to read them, which I guess it is taking a little bit longer just because I have to stop and like make sure that I'm following it correctly and do all my checks and like put in my little sticky notes so I know when to stop, things like that. But I am enjoying it so far. Really just wanted to say that Empire of Storms is picking up for me, which is really exciting. If you're looking at my hair and you're like, ew, Morgan, your hair is so oily, just know I just got out of the shower, so it's slightly damp. I didn't wash my hair, I just like accidentally got it wet. Just felt like you needed to know that because it looks really oily, but it's just wet. I wrote down little notes in the back of my little checklist here because I've been really reading the books, man. Look how much I have left. This is Empire of Storms and this is Tower of Dawn, so I definitely think I'm either gonna finish them today or tomorrow, which is so exciting. But back to my notes. Kale is walking in Tower of Dawn. I'm actually at such an interesting part in Tower of Dawn right now as well. It is when Nestra, what is her name and how do you say it? I don't know. And now that I spoiled something by looking up a different pronunciation earlier in the video, I'm not looking that up again. Okay, so you're going to have to deal with me improperly pronouncing everything just because I've ruined it for myself at this point. But she and the prince are wrapped up in the little spider's webs in the spider's like cave, and they just found out that I think her name is Maas, is the queen of the flag. So that is such an interesting part of Tower of Dawn right now, and a really interesting time to switch over to Empire of Storms because that's what I'm reading right now. Because like I said, they're literally trapped by these giant spiders. Also, when I was reading that part, I was on my walking pad, and so I didn't hear my sister walk into the room, so I had no idea she was behind me, and I was reading, and I literally audibly gasped, and she was like, really? And I was like, no, like you don't understand. I also wrote down that I feel like I'm starting to take into account the opinions of others. Like, for example, I keep thinking about like, why do people not like Kale? Like, I love Kale, and also I feel like I like Dorian because most people like Dorian, and I'm like, why do people love Dorian so much? I don't understand that quite yet. Like, I still really like him, but I'm not like in love with him, which I feel like everyone else is in love with him. Also, the romance. I normally don't hold romance being predictable in books, but this is not a romance book, so I don't really know. But I feel like in both of these books and in all the books in the series, I have very early on predicted who is going to end up together. Now, I will say, I would 100% rather prefer that than a romance come right out of the blue. I hate when that happens. I need at least a little bit of build up. So it's like a double-edged sword with that, you know? Like, I don't love being able to predict things, but I need to see it coming. It can't just come out of nowhere, then I don't really trust it. Anyways, now that I'm in the second half of both of these books, nearing the end, I feel like they're reading so much quicker than they did before. Really liking them both. Got my morning cup of tea, and I'm gonna try to finish Empire of Storms before I need to log on to work. I'm already on page 246 of Kingdom of Ash, and I'm shocked because I've gotten through it pretty quickly, but I will say I'm not as obsessed with it as I thought I was going to be, but I definitely have my highest hopes for this book out of the entire series because I feel like this is the book that most people are obsessed with. Like, I feel like the general consensus with this book is that everyone likes it. The rest of the books, I don't feel like everyone has as strong of opinion on, like everyone still likes them, but this is the one that I feel like everyone's always like, be prepared, it's gonna rip you apart, be prepared, it's so good. And it's not that I don't like it, I'm just like not super attached to anything that's going on right now, which is shocking because Aelin has just now escaped, or she's kind of like in the process of escaping. She's not exactly escaped yet, but the wolf just attacked Cain, I think is how you pronounce his name, and so that gave her the opportunity to start running. And that's literally when I put down the book, because I just now put the book down to give you an update, because like I said, I'm already at like the 250 page mark, so I wanted to at least update you at this point. And there's obviously so much that goes on in the first quarter of the book that I have now completed, but for some reason I'm just like not super into it. And I feel like at least the past couple of books that I've read in this series, I am not loving the whole first half of the book, which is kind of annoying, kind of upsetting, because I don't think it should take me like 300 pages to get into a book. And if the first half of this book I'm not into, that's almost 500 pages because this book is like 980 something pages. So I really hope that that is not the case. And hopefully I can lower my expectations a little bit and still end up really liking this book. But like I said, right now I'm just not obsessed, and I feel like everyone else is, so I'm like, what am I missing? So hopefully the last half really gets good, but I'm gonna keep reading and I'll keep updating you. It's the next morning and I just realized I never talked about the other books in the series. I don't think I'm gonna rate them right now because I'm still very much up in the air about what I want to rate them, so I'll just do all of my ratings and everything at the end. But I did want to say a couple of my thoughts on those books because I had written things down that I wanted to talk about. So the Tower of Dawn versus Empire of Storms reading order. Now obviously you know that I read them both at the same time, which also makes rating them harder because in my brain they're kind of one book. But I will say I kind of understand now why some people hate reading Empire of Storms before Tower of Dawn, because the ending in Empire of Storms was so intense. I would actually probably have hated reading Empire of Storms and then going into Tower of Dawn. Like, I would have hated how much slower Tower of Dawn is than Empire of Storms. But also, I just don't know, like I feel like reading them at the same time is just the best way to do it. But obviously that's the only way that I've done it, so I don't know. And then my biggest point that I wanted to talk about is, why is the series reminding me so much of ACOTAR? And like even the structure of the series, like the beginning books versus the end of both Throne of Glass and ACOTAR are very similar to me. And the main example that I can think of would be a spoiler in ACOTAR. It's like things like that that are just like, why is this reminding me of ACOTAR? I am still dragging along in Kingdom of Ash. I am almost at the halfway mark. I follow so many timelines that I feel like there is always something going on. You've got the Manon and Dorian point of view, and then you go into Irene and Kale's, and then you also have Aelin and her rescue, and then you have the fake Aelin and Aiden. So there's a lot of different things going on, but I kind of like that. And obviously they're all happening at the same time, so they keep switching back and forth. And the way it's written is so easy to do that switching back and forth. Sometimes books are not easy to do that with. It also reminds me of doing the tandem read between Tower of Dawn and Empire of Storms, because I feel like I've gotten used to that switching back and forth within the point of views and the way that she writes them. And now so Kingdom of Ash is just like, okay, cool. That was all of my little notes and points that I wanted to bring up and forgot to bring up earlier. I just got to the part where Selena finds out that Mauve is the Vlad Queen, and I was expecting such a bigger reaction from her. Like, I feel like she was just so stoic and like, I don't know, I just feel like she wasn't giving me enough. But also I've been waiting for this part this entire book because I was so interested to see how she would react, what people would say, and all of that stuff. So I guess I was just a little bit disappointed because I had been waiting for this moment for a while. I accidentally left my book downstairs, but I think I'm on chapter 78 right now. But I'm at the part where Dorian has now made an alliance with Mauve. I just did not see that coming because my prediction was that they were going to off her by the end of the book because obviously like she's evil, but now with this new little alliance it's kind of confusing because she seems like she's showing a good side, like because she's helping out Dorian basically. So now my only prediction is that Dorian will end up being the sacrifice to close the doors and that he will die and not Aelin. But I really don't know now at this point what is going to go down. I literally have no idea, so that's fun to be very on my toes because I feel like literally anything could happen at this point. Okay, I knew something would happen with Dorian and Mauve's alliance situation because that whole thing was so weird to me. Like, I still kind of don't understand why that whole thing was put in there because it was just, I don't know, kind of odd and like didn't seem realistic to me for either of their characters to try to make an alliance together. But obviously Mauve like basically tried to attack Dorian and and like go back on their alliance so that she could get the word keys. I knew that something was fishy there. The whole thing was just so odd to me. I don't know. I just remembered another thing that I think is kind of odd because I'm reading the part where Eld, her uncle, has just been captured by Selena, or technically Aelin. Her uncle has just been captured by Aelin, and they bring out the point that she has witch blood in her veins. Why has that been ignored for like 2 books? Like, I swear that was brought up, talked about a couple times, and then ignored for so long. I literally was wondering that earlier. I was like, why would they bring that up just to never talk about it again unless it's going to be some twist towards the end of the book? I don't know. But that whole thing is also weird to me. Like, if you're gonna mention that she has witch blood in her, I need that plotline to close at some point because that plotline is still in the back of my brain. I'm now on chapter 82 and I've been waiting this whole time for the separate point of views to merge and basically just for them all to meet again. But we finally have Manon meeting with Aiden and all of them. But I will say the timing of that was kind of weird because it just didn't feel realistic for Aiden's group to be attacked by like such a large number and basically they're all frantic because they don't have enough people to fight this, and then all of a sudden Manon comes to the rescue basically. But it's like there's just too perfect of timing. I feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm just being too picky. I got to the part this morning where Dorian and Aelin did the whole key thing in the lock, and I will say I was a little surprised that they did it together because that was not something that I would thought that they could have done, because my only hypothesis at that point was maybe that Dorian would do it but he would still survive because his power has been so different than anyone else's. Like, he can shift, he can use all the elements like fire, ice, whatever. His power is just so different than everyone else's, which I feel like we're gonna end up circling back to that eventually, but I don't know. So I was surprised that they did it together. I was not surprised that they both survived. I was surprised about Dorian's dad coming in and helping, and the whole tattoos, word marks on Aelin's back was also surprising to me. So majority of that was pretty interesting, pretty surprising. I liked that I didn't guess any of that. And then also I had been wondering for so long when one of the main characters would die, because I just feel like with a war and everything that's going on in this book, one of the characters has got to die. And just now Gabriel died. Is that Aiden's dad? I'm the worst with names. Like, I obviously can't pronounce any of them and I can barely remember who's who, but I will say this book has so many characters in it. Also, before that, a lot of the witches had died, but I hadn't grown like an emotional connection to any of the witches. But we'll see what else is gonna happen. I feel like someone else has got to die, like surely, because in a war that's what happens. I have this tiny little bit left in the book. I'm about to sit down and finish it, but I had a couple thoughts that I wanted to talk about before I did that. I literally only have 2 notes written down right now. The first one, what about Dorian's power? Why are we not digging into that? Like, I just want to know way more about that than what we're given, because his amount of power is just like not normal. I need to know more about that. My next point is just something that is bothering me now that I've noticed how many times they say it. Like, tell me Mauve is Flag one more time, because the number of times that something along the lines of not like a queen but like a Flag queen, or like they say not like a fae but like a Flag, and it normally pertains to like something she's doing or the way that she looks or something like that, and it's like, why are you saying it this many times? Is it because the book is almost 1,000 pages long and you need to keep reminding me as if I don't already remember that? Maybe, but it's just driving me crazy. I also feel like most people probably would not have noticed that because I'm sure most people don't read this book in less than 5 days. I'm just assuming. Maybe they do, but I have noticed it because, like I said, I've read it pretty fast. Like, I just don't want something like that repeated that many times, especially if it's almost 1,000 pages. I do not need to hear the same thing that many times. Okay, I got it the first time. That is all. I'm gonna go sit down and finish this book. It's now the next day and I now feel ready to talk about all 3 of these books. I needed to take a day and just sit on all of my thoughts. Let's first start out with Tower of Dawn and Empire of Storms, because I actually feel like I have less to say about the 2 of these books. I can't remember if the Dorian and Manon romance started in these books or if they started in Kingdom of Ash, but I'm gonna pretend that they started in Kingdom of Ash. I will say though, I don't like the romance scenes in these books at all. They actually made me uncomfortable, which is weird, but also they reminded me of ACOTAR, and I'm at a point where I kind of really don't like ACOTAR, which is funny because when I first read them, I liked them, but the more I sit and think about ACOTAR, the more I like it less. So that's kind of how I feel right now. But on that note, I did like a lot of what happens in these books. Like I said, I actually really liked Tower of Dawn, and I really liked the romance between Irene, and also I loved Irene from Assassin's Blade, so I'm so glad that she got the happy ending she deserved. Kale got the happy ending he deserved. I mean, it didn't come in Tower of Dawn fully, but it started in Tower of Dawn, and we got a lot of Kale in Tower of Dawn, which is probably why I liked it so much. Empire of Storms, I didn't like it until the end, mostly mostly because, and you might hate me for this, but I don't love Aelin. I kind of don't. And I don't really like her relationship with Rowan either. Like, I like Rowan, but for some reason, the two of them together, I just don't see it like everyone else does. But with all that being said, I can't seem to separate these two books from my brain. And so, because I liked Tower of Dawn so much and the last half of Empire of Storms, I think I'm gonna give these a 4-star. And I'm just gonna rate them pretending that they are one book because I did read them together and I could not imagine it any other way. I honestly don't understand why they are separated into 2 books. I feel like they should have been one book. Now, this is where things went a little bit south. And I'm about to shock probably a lot of you. I think I'm gonna rate this book a 3-star. Hold on, let me explain all of my thoughts and feelings before you make any decisions, okay? First, Kale and Irene loved them in this book. The second part, though, is the somewhat accidental pregnancy of Irene, because obviously they were not planning to have a baby during war. And I literally called it when I was reading Tower of Dawn and Empire of Storms. I literally called the fact that someone would have an accidental pregnancy. My other thing, I mentioned this earlier, Dorian and Manon, their relationship was so weird. And like, what is up with all the, it wasn't romantic. It was just, and I just didn't like that at all, actually. I feel like both of their characters were so strong before this book. I feel like Dorian took a skyrocket in this book, and he was such a main part of this book. He should not have gone downhill like he did, if you ask me. And like, when he became a witch and like shapeshifted into a witch, like that part, that was so weird. Guys, why is no one talking about this? And I still really didn't like Aelin in this book. I don't know, I just didn't love her as a character. Everyone paired off romantically, which just was so unnecessary. Like, they don't need to be with someone else. Like, they are fine on their own. For the amount of war fighting scenes, which was too many by the way, there should have been more death. All they had was a killing off of someone that we didn't get a lot of emotional connection to. His death kind of felt like a cop-out. It kind of felt like Sarah J Maas didn't want to kill any of the main characters, so she just didn't. But I just feel like that's not how war goes. Someone should have died. It did have a nice happy ending, but like I said, someone should have at least died or gotten majorly hurt. I don't know. The end just did not set right for me, and I kind of touched on it before. There was absolutely no need for this book to be this long. I probably would have liked it a little bit more if this book was shorter. As I got further along in the ACOTAR series, I started liking it less and less, and I fear that Sarah J Maas has changed and grown as an author, which is fine and that is normal, but I don't think her writing is for me at this point in my life, because I did want to go on and read Crescent City. Now I'm kind of thinking again that I'm looking for something a little bit different. With all of that being said, I do still recommend Throne of Glass if this is something that you are looking for. I just preferred the first half of the series to the last half of the series, and that's exactly how I felt with ACOTAR. And I just feel like if I am going to get so attached to characters and spend so much time reading a series, I want to like them all. I don't want the end of the series to fall off for me. Also, wanted to quickly mention that I think I had the highest expectations for Kingdom of Ash, which is probably also part of the problem on why it got a lower rating from me. And I did rate it a 3 because, like I said, I would still recommend this whole series, but it's not going to be one that I think about at all, really. So hopefully all of my thoughts and feelings made sense. Honestly, I'm just as shocked as you are because, like I said, my expectations were so high. I thought I would at least get a 5-star out of this series, and I haven't, but that's okay. We will prevail. We will find another series to love and talk about. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!